Only in America? I muttered under my breath, staring at the man who once made my teenage years a living hell. Fate apparently had a twisted sense of humor. Of all the offices in all of New York, he had to walk into mine. The last time I'd seen Alex Morgan, he'd been smirking across a high school debate stage, hands tucked casually in his pockets as if victory were already his. And now, 5 years later, there he stood, grown sharper, taller, and far more infuriatingly attractive than any memory had warned me. I clutched my coffee like it was a lifeline. Maybe if I stared into the dark liquid long enough, I'd wake up and discover this was just a cruel Monday dream. But Alex was still there, leaning against the doorframe like he owned the place, his easy grin daring me to say something first. "Well," he said finally, his voice a low rumble that rolled through the quiet office like distant thunder. "If it isn't Ethan Carter." Still allergic to losing. I hated that my heart gave a traitorous lurch at the sound of his voice. Some things, it seemed, time didn't fix. "You still confusing arrogance with charm?" I shot back, forcing my words to sound like steel when inside they felt more like water. His grin deepened, slow and maddening. Touché. The tension between us wasn't the kind you could slice with a knife. It was thicker, electric-like, standing under a sky about to break open with lightning. I wanted to hate him the way I used to, but the man in front of me wasn't the same boy I'd competed against. There was a shadow behind his confident eyes, something that made me pause, something that made my chest tighten in ways I wasn't ready to name. We had been paired on the same projective course we had. Our manager, blissfully unaware of the storm she'd just summoned, had smiled as she announced it. "Ethan, Alexi'll handle the Lawson account together. You're both top performers. I expect fireworks." Fireworks. If only she knew. Our first planning session felt like a chess match. Alex's ideas were bold, daring, occasionally reckless. Mine were measured, methodical, precise. It should have been easy to clash the way we used to. Instead, I caught myself watching the way his brow furrowed when he concentrated. The way he tapped his pen against his lip as if coaxing the next brilliant move. At lunch, he surprised me by sliding into the seat across from mine. "So," he said, breaking a fry in half and offering me one without asking. "Still think you're smarter than me?" I raised an eyebrow. "Depends. Are we counting emotional intelligence?" He laughed, really laughed, and for a second the years between us dissolved. The sound hit me like a warm gust of air in winter. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Later that week, while we were staying late to polish the final pitch, the office grew quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. I looked up from my laptop to find him watching me, his expression softer than I'd ever seen. There was no smirk, no challenge, just something raw and unguarded. "What?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've changed," he said. "Or maybe I never really knew you." My chest tightened. "People grow up." "Yeah." He held my gaze. "But you turned out better than I imagined." The words settled between us like a fragile secret. I swallowed hard, unsure what to do with the sudden weight of them. For once, the boy who always had the last word stayed silent. When the Lawson presentation finally ended in thunderous applause, our manager clapped us both on the back. "Dynamic duo," she declared. "I knew you two would kill it." Alex grinned at me, but this time there was no hint of rivalry, only pride. And something else I dared not name. That night, as we left the building under the pale glow of streetlights, a cold wind whipped down Fifth Avenue. He offered me his scarf without a word. I hesitated, but he draped it around my neck anyway, his fingers brushing my skin like an accidental promise. "Ethan," he said quietly, "maybe we were never really enemies." I met his gaze, the city buzzing softly around us. For once, I couldn't think of a single clever comeback. He smiled, almost shy. "Maybe we were just waiting." The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy, as if the whole of New York had stopped to listen. I didn't answer right away. The scarf around my neck still held his warmth, and for a heartbeat, Fifth Avenue's chaos blurred into a hush that belonged only to us. "Waiting for what?" I finally asked, my voice rougher than I intended. Alex tilted his head, his dark hair ruffled by the wind. For you to stop seeing me as an enemy. For me to stop hiding behind the thrill of beating you. He exhaled, a soft cloud of breath in the cold. Maybe for us to grow up enough to see what's been in front of us all along. My heart thudded hard against my ribs. I wanted to laugh it off, to retreat into the old sparring rhythm that had once been our safety net. But the weight of his gaze left no room for escape. Alex. My throat tightened. I don't know how to unlearn what we were. Then don't. He stepped closer until the city lights caught the faint scar on his jaw, a relic of some story I didn't know. Just learn what we can be now. The simple certainty in his words undid me. We had built our identities on competition debate trophies, better grades, sharper retorts. But standing there in the winter air, I realized that rivalry had always been the easiest mask for something neither of us dared name. I didn't kiss him that night. We just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, until the city grew quiet and our breaths fell into the same rhythm. But something in me shifted, a door cracking open to light I hadn't known I needed. The weeks that followed were a blur of late nights and long days. Our project's success catapulted us into more joint assignments. What once felt like a challenge became a partnership that startled me with its ease. He anticipated my thoughts. I finished his sentences. It was unnerving and comforting all at once. Yet every shared glance carried a question we never voiced. Sometimes, in the middle of a team meeting, I'd catch him watching me, eyes soft with something like wonder. I'd look away, my chest a storm. Then came the winter gala. The firm rented a rooftop venue overlooking the glittering skyline. Everyone arrived in black suits and champagne smiles. I spotted Alex across the room, his white shirt crisp under the low amber lights, tie loosened just enough to be dangerous. He caught me staring and raised an eyebrow, a silent dare. Old habits die hard. I smirked back, but the air between us tightened like a held breath. Hours later, when the party thinned and music softened, he found me by the railing. The city stretched beneath us, a river of lights. Beautiful, I said, meaning the view. Yeah, he replied, eyes fixed on me instead. It is. Something inside me broke then, not in pain, but in surrender. All the years of barbed words and stolen glances collapsed into this quiet recognition. I used to hate you, I admitted, my voice barely carrying over the distant hum of traffic. He smiled faintly. I know. I used to deserve it. No, I said quickly. You just scared me. That startled him. Scared you? You made me want things I didn't know how to want, I confessed. To be better, to be seen. It was easier to fight you than to figure that out. Alex's eyes softened. He stepped closer, the city wind tugging at his hair. Ethan, you've always been more than a rival to me. The space between us vanished. He reached out, hesitant, as if giving me time to pull away. I didn't. When his fingers finally laced with mine, the world steadied. You don't have to be afraid anymore, he whispered. And for once I wasn't. What followed wasn't a sudden, cinematic whirlwind. It was slower, more deliberate. Dinners that stretched into midnight talks. Walks through snow-dusted streets where silence spoke louder than words. We learned the edges of each other's lives, the grief of his father's passing, the quiet pressure of my own perfectionism. We still argued, of course. Alex had a gift for poking at my carefully laid plans, and I matched him point for point. But the fights were different now, heated, yes, but anchored in something that made us both braver. One night in early spring, after a particularly brutal client pitch, we collapsed on the office couch long after everyone else had left. I rested my head back, exhaustion sinking deep. You know, he murmured, draping an arm across the back of the couch. If someone told me in high school that I'd end up here with you, I would have laughed them out of the room. I turned to him, a tired smile tugging at my lips. Yeah, well, life's funny like that. He looked at me for a long time, then brushed a stray strand of hair from my forehead. No, life's smarter than us. Something about the simplicity of his touch, the quiet certainty in his voice, filled me with a peace I hadn't known I was missing. Spring melted into early summer. Our relationship became less of a question and more of a truth. We never made a grand announcement. We didn't need to. It was in the way he saved the last cup of coffee for me every morning, in the way I found his jacket draped over my chair when the office air conditioning got too cold. Sometimes, when we walked through Central Park at dusk, I thought of the boys we once were, armed with sharp words and stubborn pride. I almost wanted to thank them. Without their battles, we might never have found this fragile, hard-won peace. One evening, as the sky turned the color of melted copper, Alex stopped beneath a canopy of trees. He took my hand, thumb tracing lazy circles across my palm. "Remember the first debate we ever had?" he asked. "How could I forget?" I laughed. "You demolished my opening argument. You let me win the closing," he said with a grin. I blinked. "I did not." "You did," he insisted, eyes glinting with mischief. Then his expression softened. "You've always let me in, even when you didn't want to." My throat tightened. "And you've always pushed me harder than anyone else." "Maybe," he said quietly, "but only because I wanted to see all of you." The city around us pulsed with evening life, distant horns, laughter from a passing couple, the rustle of leaves overhead. And in that moment, I realized the rivalry that once defined us had been nothing more than the first step toward something neither of us could name back then. Alex squeezed my hand. "No more waiting," he whispered. I met his gaze, and the old walls between us crumbled for good. The kiss we shared wasn't the dramatic end to a long wear, it was the gentle beginning of something we had both been walking toward for years. When we finally pulled away, the city lights flickered like 1,000 silent witnesses. I smiled, my chest full of something steady and unshakable. "From rivals," I said softly, "to this." Alex grinned, his forehead resting against mine. "Best debate I ever lost." And for the first time, I knew exactly what we had been fighting for all along. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.